Right, hello everybody and welcome to a new video on what happened during and after the major service on the Porsche 987 Boxster, which I've just purchased. Yeah, where to start really? It's not great news, but it's not the worst news. I've got my folder here where I keep all my car bills and receipts and things, and this is the long double-sided bill and description of the parts used. I just want to say thank you to Paul Lewis at Talk Boxsters, who did all my work. Trusted guy with all generations of Boxsters. He'll only say that he's an expert in 986s, but that's just not true. Mine's a 987 and Paul worked his way around my car, no problem at all. So thanks very much, Paul. I've come to my favourite cafe in Chobham, Surrey, called Basil and Blue. And if you've never been here, come along. There's a public car park just behind where the cafe sits. And if you love hot chocolate, this is the only place to go, and they also sell some really lovely cakes. My particular favourite is the lemon drizzle frangipani, and yeah, and the ham and cheese, spicy, toasty, awesome. Coffee is also fantastic. So check them out. Right, where do I start on the Boxster? So I paid £4,750, and the cost of all the work I've had done on it so far is £2,200. So I'm good for the car's about £7,000. Now, it drives fine. The suspension needs replacing, definitely at the front, and there's another big job which I'll get to at the end of the video, which is going to be probably the most costly part of owning my Boxster. And there are jobs that you kind of need to do once in a lifetime, and I think that's going to be what I have to do. But just to take you through some of the things that were carried out. So Paul did a major service. That includes a lot of changing oils and things like that. I'll go through those in a moment. It's changed the brake fluid. Now the brake fluid came out like a green colour. Now I've never seen brake fluid that colour in my life, but it came out green, so that's been done. We also changed the drive belt. Now although I've got full service history with the car, the documentation was very limited. So I thought, right, let's do the drive belt. There's no evidence of it being done, and it should be done every 6 years or every 100,000 miles, I think it is. Right, this is the drive belt which has been removed from my car. We've had a new one put in. Yeah, there's actually not much to look at, is it? It's quite long though.
That's about okay.
We did the front pads and discs, and one of the problems that Paul came was that one of the screw threads was broken, so we had to put a heady coil in. So it's got new pads and new discs, new track rod ends. Now actually, for the cost of those, they've actually ended up being a really good buy. Although my front suspension is a bit dodgy, they've actually made quite a difference. Just the turning the steering wheel in sort of tight spaces, and it's just not as clunky and horrible as it was. So they're a nice little to-do thing if you've got the cash. They're not particularly expensive. I decided to change the gearbox oil. That was cheap, 100 quid, and that's made a big difference to the gear change. Now, before it was a bit clunky going from second to third gear. Obviously that's the most used gear in a Boxster, especially my generation with a 5-speed manual, and just changing the gearbox oil has made a huge difference. It does feel like it's been re-lubricated. It's good, well worth it. If you're supposed to do it, and I'll come up with the intervals in a moment, but you're supposed to change the gearbox oil if it hasn't been done. So the drive belt should be replaced every 60,000 miles and no later than every 6 years. So if you haven't got evidence that that's been done, You want to get that done. And the manual transmission oil change should be done at 120,000 miles and no later than every 12 years. So make sure those two things are done. Well, the gearbox one maybe don't have to worry so much, but it's recommended, so you should do it. And the spark plugs should be done every 60,000 miles or no later than every 4 years. Also, the roof was not quite right, so there's a couple of jobs which were done on the roof. The roof arm was broken, so that was replaced. That was a cheap fix. And the elastic on the roof, both of them were basically perished and old and frayed, and you can see an image of that now. So that was done as well, and that was a relatively cheap repair. So don't put off if you've got a problem with your roof, like I had, where it was overlapping the window frame. Don't put it off, just get it done. A couple of £100, you'll have a perfectly working roof. I also had a floppy passenger wing mirror. The mirror was all floppy. The motor's fine, but for some reason, if it ever stuck on the mirror, it just didn't stick very well. And every time we went in a corner, it changed position. It sounds trivial, right? But when you're trying to reverse in a Boxster, you need all your everything that you've got to use to reverse and see where you're going to be working perfectly. So you definitely need that. So that was a cheap fix if you know what you're doing, and Paul did that for me. Now, one of the biggies was I had a problem with the ignition key. Now, if you've owned one of these cars, the Porsche, for some reason in the 987 generation, if your battery goes flat, you can't take the key out. So there's an emergency way of getting the key out by pushing in this metal thing into this little slot right by the key, and it allows you to take the key out. Anyway, I couldn't live with that, so I got that done. So that was a £400 fix, and that was quite a lot of effort from Paul. So I probably got that a little bit cheaper than it would normally be, but I'm glad I got that done. It's made the car much nicer to get in and out of, no more embarrassing. Looks like I'm breaking into the car every time. Yeah, my driver's door was a real pain. Something I thought would be a real quick fix is actually probably one of the worst jobs that Paul came up against. Basically, the door lever to get in and out had come loose, and to fix it, you had to take the door card off. But because the door card had been bodged in the past, it was actually really difficult for Paul to sort it out. Now, he has sorted it out, and the door lever is much better. I've got a new switch and everything. But yeah, it still rattles a bit, so I'm probably going to need a new door card. Now, it's fine if you've got a black interior, but mine's a Metropole blue interior, and they're really hard to find. So it's just a matter of putting up with it until a door card becomes available, and then off we go, get it changed, won't be a problem. So that's something to remember if you're buying a Porsche. If you do go for a fancy interior colour, if things go wrong, it's going to be maybe a little bit tricky to find parts for it. While Paul was doing the servicing the engine, so he had the covers off and the engine was exposed and he did the drive belt, he noticed that one of the deflection rollers had a bit more play in it than the others. So for a minimal cost, that's just over 120 quid, we thought we'd replace the roll. We did 2 rollers, so they're brand new, so I know they're working really well. And so the engine's really, really sweet. Nothing wrong with the engine at all. Paul actually commented on how well the old spark plugs came out of, how well they looked, the colour consistency across all the spark plugs, which means signs of a healthy engine. Now, I wasn't intended to do this, but the old wheel bolts had the central locking nut, and seeing as nobody goes around stealing wheels anymore, Paul convinced me to get new wheel bolts. Makes it much easier to take wheels off, and you're not going to lose the nut and then you can't take the wheels off. So I got brand new wheel bolts, and they make a big difference actually. They make the wheels look much nicer, and they were 75 quid, right? So not too painful. Also, something else I didn't plan for, which was I'm glad Paul offered the service, was he cleaned all my wheel arches. So he took all the wheels off and he gave all the wheel arches a good clean. And so I know now that all that grime from over 171,000 miles has now been removed. And Paul's very good, sends you pictures of before and after. Anything he does or he thinks needs doing, he'll discuss with you before doing it. So really, that is the main bulk of work that was done, and that came to just over £2,000. I'm sure that could have cost more at a main dealership for sure, and you know, Paul's done some things, I'm sure, at cost, you know, or because they weren't things planned to do, and he's a good guy. So I can't emphasise how good Paul is. He knows what to look for, and I bought my Boxster completely cold. I didn't know anything about them really. Yes, it had full service history, but very little paperwork with it, so it was a big gamble. So although I bought it cheap, it's not going to be cheap to maintain this car. Right, so that's the good news. The engine is good, the gearbox is good. However, the major thing I'm going to need doing to this Boxster is the front subframe. So when Paul came to look at changing the lower control arms at the front, we already knew that the lower control arms are kind of fused to the subframe, and I'll show you a couple of pictures of what they should look like and what mine look like. And although there's no immediate, well, I don't think there is any immediate damage of the suspension, the lower control arm coming away from the subframe, it is possible and it is a risk. So, but from the service history and the MOT, I can see that this problem's been around for a while. So I'm a little bit concerned, and it's a job I want to get done because I love the car. So I've got it booked in with an independent Porsche specialist. They're going to have a look at it on the 1st of July, and I'd hopefully document that for you, try to understand the cost involved. And I'm told that if you do the front subframe, it's a great time to do the coolant crossover pipes, which is a once in a lifetime job. So if I do that, well, I will do that, but if I do that, I'll do the crossover pipes as well, and I'm sure there might be 1 or 2 jobs involved in that as well. So I don't know, it's probably a £3,000 or £4,000 job, I'm guessing. It could be more depending on what else they find. So I'm going to try and save up £5,000 between now and then, just in case. Get the front subframe done, lower control arms, and then the next job will be looking at a suspension refresh on the front, definitely. So I'm definitely going to get that done. I'm told by everybody at all the clubs that once you've done the suspension refresh and all the other little components in the wheel arches, it's like driving a brand new Boxster. So that's definitely on the cards. What else? So some of the parts that Paul has used, I hope you don't mind me disclosing this, Paul, but like Mobile 1 engine oil, used just under 8 litres. .4 brake fluid. We've got Spider, we've got a couple of Spider performance parts. We've got an oil filter and a cabin filter. We've got a Bosch air filter, Bosch spark plugs, there's 6 of those, 6-cylinder. Gearbox oil, there's 75W over 90, there's 3 litres of that. Screen wash, Spider performance drive belt. We've got 1 roof plastic socket. We've got a door Bowden cable. We've got a door pivot lever. We've got 2 drive belt deflection rollers. We've got Spider performance wheel bolts times 20. We've got a Porsche ignition lock. Sebro front brake discs. Brembo front brake pads. We've got mirror glass adhesive pads. And we've got Spider performance track rod ends times 2. They're awesome. So that came in at £2,200 here in the UK. I knew I was going to spend 1,500 quid, but as always, you get a bit carried away if it's a product you love, and you know you want to make it drive the best. So you do get a bit carried away. So if you're buying a cheap Porsche, you really want to have that 5k in the bank, and just remember that if you're buying it and thinking I'm not going to care about it, these things get under your skin, and before you know it, you're spending more money on them than you thought. But boy, do they reward you. I've come over, it's my daily driver, so I've used the Boxster to come over here today to film this video, and yeah, I love it. I've done just under 800 miles in 6 weeks. So I've got a cute puppy looking at me, and no, it's epic. Such a great car. I can't see myself getting rid of it, and hopefully once I've got these other issues sorted out, it'll be like brand new. Hopefully the engine will keep going, and we'll get all the way to 200,000 miles, share it with you. So yeah, so that's the story on the Boxster. I absolutely love it. Let me know what videos you want to see on it. I've already done quite a few videos, and I've created my 987 Boxster playlist on my YouTube channel. I'm posting content across all the different platforms, and yeah, anything I can do to help the Boxster community, let me know. Thanks for all those of you who have talked to me on the various groups I'm in. It's really appreciated, and love all the support that the Boxster has. It is a cheap 911, it's a cheap alternative to a 911, but boy is it a good drive, and I don't think anybody can take that away from it. So anyway, thanks for watching, please subscribe, and there's going to be loads more content coming your way very soon. Right, so I've now got to my service book, Porsche service book. I now got a lovely stamp in there from Talk Boxsters, detailing the fact that this is a major service, spark plug replacement, drive belt replaced. So check this, if you're buying a Boxster, you want to check the service manual, and also at the back of the service manual it tells you all about whether or not you've had brake fluid change. So there should be stamps in the back about brake fluid changes.